Our final question this week on the Drive-Thru, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. I see a real name here, but it is signed Dick from Dickville, Mississippi. Obviously, Charlie from Starkville has Midnight Express-like influence now over the other people sending in their emails. Longtime listener and fan of the show here. I read years ago a story of Brutus the Barber Beefcake arriving at WrestleMania 5 in Atlantic City on the day of the show with a stripper in tow that he allegedly met the night before, insisting that she needed to be given a ticket to the show. The author claimed Brutus's request was delivered upon, and his lady friend was given tickets to the show. Was this something you ever experienced in wrestling? What? Perhaps you yourself took advantage of such things. I know a lot of the boys were popular with the ladies. Was it common for guys to turn up with a friend or two and request they be granted free access to the show?
This is a rib question, right?
Similarly, did you get a lot of freeloaders backstage at shows? Were there any wrestlers who were notorious or well known for bringing friends to shows and trying to get them into shows for free? And if so, how much hospitality would be extended?
So wait a minute. Basically, the overall question here is, has any other wrestler besides Brutus Beefcake ever brought a girl, a rat, or their friends and family and wanted to get them free tickets?
The actual subject line is freeloaders and freebies, so I think...
How many wrestling shows have ever been run in history? Whatever that number is, that's the same number of wrestlers that have tried to get free fucking tickets for strippers, whores, rats, girlfriends, family members, friends, business associates, and fucking drug suppliers. Constantly, all the time. Now, there was times you knew when not to do it. Nobody better ask goddamn. If you asked Bill Watts for a ticket for anybody, he would get it to you and make sure that the fucking cost of that ticket was taken out of your goddamn salary. If you brought your wife or your girlfriend or your family to the fucking matches, he would have a fucking meeting at TV and say the chairman of Exxon doesn't bring his wife to the board meetings. If it was the Superdome, he'd lighten up, and because they had a skybox, I actually did. The only time I ever asked for a free ticket from Mid-South Wrestling was my first Superdome when Mama Cornette came down from Louisville and my girlfriend at the time, and they sat up in the fucking box because they were afraid to put them down on the floor because if anybody found out it was Mama Cornette, they were afraid she'd be killed. And, you know, sometimes if a guy's over and he's drawing money in the territory, Jerry Jarrett was never going to tell Jerry Lawler, no, you can't have fucking, 5 of your friends come to the matches in Memphis for free. But he sure would have told me, no, you can't have 5 of your friends come to the matches in fucking Louisville. So it depended on who it was, depended on the circumstances. But as to whether people got away with it or not, or whether they... I'm sure guys still had the balls to ask Watts, or they'd ask Grizzly, or they'd just try to sneak some girl in and stick her in the fucking bleachers and hope that Grizzly wouldn't see it, which Grizzly saw everything. And sometimes, some promoters didn't give a shit. Okay, if it's your girlfriend or if it's like the Virginia wives in the Carolinas. All the guys that lived in Charlotte had what they called their Virginia wives. When you went up every couple of weeks to Norfolk and Richmond, you stayed over a couple of days. So they had their they were okay most of the time. And plus, when you're drawing 6, 7, 8,000, 10,000 people, a few tickets here and there, it doesn't really make a big difference. But I remember also hearing that the comp ticket list for Starrcade 86 in Greensboro at the Coliseum, they gave out somewhere in the neighborhood of 36 comp tickets. The WWE people, when they did the pay-per-view there in 1998, were gobsmacked. They'd never seen that small a comp ticket list. It was probably all for the radio stations and, fucking some very high-placed people because they just didn't give tickets away in those days. But at the same time, for Starrcade, a lot of the guys would bring their wives and they'd either stick them in the end of the bleachers or they'd just pull out a fucking folding chair and have them sit if the place was sold out, because that's where you'd really get heat. It's sold out. We're turning fans away, but I've parked your wife's ass in a chair for free. Fuck you. I'm paying you too. So it depends.
Who was the worst offender in Smoky Mountain?
Oh, God. I'm trying to think. I can't remember a lot of guys abusing that. Honestly, I don't remember anybody abusing comps in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I really can't think. And plus, sometimes it depended. If Morristown East High Principal Jerry Williams was in a tag on the show, with Horner against me and fucking Stan Lane, well, I bet you Jerry didn't charge 10 or 20 of his fucking family members to come in and see him, but we drew fucking almost 1,000 people to see it. So what the fuck, right? I can't remember because they knew. You just don't do that. And I was the last one tell anybody they couldn't bring their own fucking particular girlfriend in that area, whatever area we were in. So, I'd be glad to let one girl in free with each guy. Just to make sure everybody was happy.
Was it the same thing in OVW? Because now you're talking more about guys being trained.
Oh, no, nobody fucking, no. Unless, if you were on the show or working on the show, that's one thing, but nobody just fucking got in, and that was over my head too. That was Danny Davis, and everybody was too scared of Danny to try to fucking wangle any goddamn freebies. And once again, this is in the building. We're not talking about in the locker room. None of these girls, none of these wives, none of these fiancés, none of these friends, none of these business partners, nobody was allowed in any of the locker rooms. Just because you could get in the building free and see the fucking show didn't mean you were in the back, the locker room, the back area adjacent to the locker room, or anything, fucking where it's supposed to be the boys exclusively. And again, then there's exceptions to that. Old General MacArthur, Bruce MacArthur up in Chicago. He part owner of the hockey team, and he had he would take the horsemen out all the time, limos and planes and things. So he might be standing around back of the UIC pavilion, but even he didn't go in the locker room. So we're just talking about getting free into the building. That was hard enough. Nobody went in the locker room. I can't remember a territory that I was ever in where anybody, even really the cops doing security, unless they were personal friends with the boys, were ever allowed in the locker room, much less any fans, any friends, blah, blah, blah. That's a modern invention. Last 25 or 30 years.